presentation is an analysis into the cause of the dot-com bubble and U.S. housing crash of 2007. Is the Fed orchestrating next financial super bubble? Now, my view is that the Fed was behind the dot-com bubble of the year 2000. We started the third millennium with one of the biggest crises, the dot-com bubble of the year 2000. And one of the reasons we had there was an oversupply of credit and loans made, and the Fed increased the interest rates in the year 2000, and we had the crash. And the same thing happened in the year 2007. We had a very, very low interest rates and expansionary monetary policy, and then the Fed increased interest rates, and we had the housing crash in the year 2007. Is the Fed behind this third bubble? Here we have these four, of course, the pandemic crisis that the Fed was able to print more money. But the year 2007, 2008, we had the recession. It was the worst since the Great Depression. Negative GDP, about 6%. Unemployment here in the United States was over 10%, the worst since the Great Depression. Now, the dot-com bubble year 2000 also was very, it wasn't that bad, but the unemployment rate was 7%. But the NASDAQ collapsed by 600%. And it took about 10 years for the NASDAQ to recover. Now, during this pandemic, why we were able to avoid the disaster of this pandemic? Because we had the expansionary policy unprecedented. More than $5 trillion were printed by the Fed. And over $5 trillion the US government spent. That's over 50% of the GDP. That's a huge, huge amount of money was pumped into the economy. Now, the next one, and notice the interest rate of the Fed has been declining since the 1970s. And every time the Fed increases interest rates, it looks like we are going into a recession. And notice what's happening. The real interest rates are getting lower and lower and lower. So we had about 0% in the last 10 years or so. So now we realize that we are increasing the interest rate. But here I have the total assets of the Fed, and we have over almost $9 trillion on the balance sheet. We were able to double that since 3 years ago. That's a huge, huge amount pumped in the economy. What they try to do now is to shrink the balance sheet, which will be, I think, impossible, given that they would try to do that a few years ago, and the economy was collapsing. Now, let's go to the interest rates that I had here. Yes? I have a few more minutes. Notice the interest rates. Okay, notice the interest rates of the Fed, and the left in 2019-18, they were trying to normalize interest rates and then to decline interest rates to zero. Okay, and the issue is where before you had a cushion of declining interest rates, they could decline, but now around 2.5%, the Fed is running out of room to decline interest rates. Okay, so notice here what's happening to interest rates. Okay, so they're trying to decline interest rates. They did, And I don't think they were ever able to increase interest rates to fight the recession, the inflation. We have inflation rate is over 9%. That's according to the statistic of the government. But my own statistics is we have more than double that, over 18% inflation rate. And to kill this inflation, you have to have interest rates over 9%, which is impossible for the Fed to do it. And a few years ago, they would try to increase to 2.5%, and then to abort that because the economy was collapsing. So right now, if the Fed tries to increase interest rates, I'm afraid we're going to go to another recession, and they will never will try to shrink the balance sheet. So it will be a disaster for the economy. What I have to, yes, this is the inflation, the interest rates again. Yes, the real interest rates. The real interest rates, and you can see it below here. This line is negative 6-7%. So to get the positive real interest rates, I think will be impossible. So, and here we have the inflation rate, the consumer, which is coming tomorrow morning, by the way. Here in the United States, we have the consumer price index. And so far, year to year has been 9.3%. The last month, 3 months, over 10%. And on Thursday, we have the producer price index, which is over 11%. Now, what causes this inflation? Of course, the Fed. If the Fed starts to print the money, what is inflation? Expansionary money supply. And I was saying all to this trial last year, if the Fed prints more money, we will get more inflation. It's inconceivable how the Fed, with over 40,000 people, thousands of economists work with the Fed, did not see inflation last year until last November or so, when it reached 8% inflation rate. So yes, this is the inflation rate in the last 4 years, and you can see it. Now, inflation rate today is not measured, is the same as 4 years ago. It's totally different. As I stated before, if they would measure inflation as they did 4 years ago, we would be 18-19%. So, so this is a synthesis of my presentation, and I'd like to conclude that the Latin phrase is no free lunch. Okay. By the way, the motto of Oxford University is a Latin. If you take a look at it, it's a Latin phrase which says that God is light. And by the way, it's in Latin. Okay. And the language of communication in the Middle Ages, when Oxford was established, was in Latin. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Dr. for coming to my session.